everybody. So I think I got some really good juice for you guys. There's a lot going on, and I find this to be very relevant because you're seeing Democrats actively trying to destroy the Constitution, and with the Green New Deal, they want to destroy many of these old Tartarian buildings. I mentioned that in my last video, and many seem to not really understand why the Constitution is so important and what makes it special. In this video, I want to present a thesis that will explain how the Constitution of the United States could be a Tartarian document from a past age that created the most beautiful system in which the people had control over the government. There are many pieces to cover, so let's get started. Shout out to KD on Stolen History for helping out with this info. You've heard me mention that many US cities were not founded on the dates that we are taught in history books and all that. These buildings are much older than we are led to believe, and we have a lot of evidence to support this. So we have this legend of this legendary town called Norumbega. And supposedly, it was this empire that was in North America before the history books teach us, and they don't really teach about this. It's supposedly just a legend. But what we have is this map from the 1540s that shows castles and European settlements in America, and this doesn't really fit the narrative. This is from 1540. So what are these buildings? So, and also, there's parts of this map that are missing. We only have some fragments left. But I found this whole legend of Norumbega very interesting. And what I'm trying to propose is, what if there was a empire that was made up of the northeastern cities and states that we know of, like New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., and most of these were actually some type of Tartarian empire that was within the United States. So let's take a look at Norumbega. So if we look on Wikipedia, Norumbega is a legendary settlement in northeastern North America, which was featured on many early maps from the 1500s until European colonization of the region. It was alleged that the houses had pillars of gold, and the inhabitants carried quartz of pearls on their heads. Part of Abraham Ortelius' atlas from 1570 showing Norumbega among other somewhat mythical names for various areas as well as several phantom islands. Now the idea is, what if this was actually a Tartarian empire, and instead of what we are led to believe that, America was founded in 1776, well, what if Tartaria still had control of America until around 1812, when we see the war between the United States and the UK, and then we see all these fires from around the world. So it begs the question, is Norumbega actually the old Washington, D.C.? Now, we can question whether these Tartarians built these buildings or not. Maybe they came across it. Some of these buildings may be from another age, some of these Capitol buildings. But for the most part, I would like to think that maybe they were the ones who developed the system of government, or the system of freedom, where people were given the rights to form militias and protect themselves from the tyranny that was probably happening all around the world. Now, I know that may feel like I'm kind of stretching it, but there's a lot of old books and a lot of old documentation that talks about Tartaria being in America. For example, having achieved the conquest, the Tartars and their descendants had probably a much harder task to perform. This was to subdue the more ferocious and warlike European colonists who had entrenched and fortified themselves in this country after the arrival of the Tartars, or Indians as they're now called. So the idea is, or what I'm trying to get to is, what if the Tartarians were actually the ones that were the founders or the founding fathers of many of the principles that we cherish in America today? Now the question is, when the Europeans came and invaded, or this war between, these parasites or whoever wanted to conquer this, the question is, who decided to protect the Constitution? Why is it that we still have that document, if it is from a past age? Now, it's possible that maybe they didn't just destroy all the Tartarians, meaning they had to submit. They may have lost the war. But what if a secret society, call them Freemasons, maybe another group, formed in a sense where they would protect not only the history of, you know, North America, but they would also protect the foundations of the people, which was to be able to govern themselves and to protect themselves from tyranny. And what we see is America is the last place on earth with any type of document that allows that to happen. I saw a couple people mentioning that it's just a piece of paper and all this stuff, but there's no other document in the world that allows you to form militias against the government to protect yourself from tyranny. Now, one of the good puzzle pieces to this is when you look at the uniforms between the British and America, they literally have the same outfits. They look exactly the same. So the question is, maybe these are the Europeans, and the Tartarians, they looked more like militias, which again goes with the Constitution. So if this was America and this was British, why would they be wearing such similar clothing, such similar type of weapons? Doesn't necessarily make sense. The idea is that we have these old world type of uniforms, right? These militia type units, and then we have this new world where they have these, you know, extravagant European uniforms that all look the same. So it begs the question, was Tartaria in America, and were they the foundation of America? You know, the Europeans seem like they're just following orders, but these Tartarians seem like these are just people. These are people forming militias and protecting their state. So who are the real foreign parasites, and who were the ones who were here first? You see the same old type of stuff with these European, I mean, the USA and France look literally just the same. They have the same stuff on their heads. It's, you know, it's the same people. And here's a really interesting piece of the puzzle. So you also have like leftover architectures or leftover towers that still reference this Norumbega legend. So supposedly there's this Norumbega tower that this is all that's left, but it looks like something from the old world. And, you know, they say this was erected in the 1800s and stuff like that, but in here it says that it's supposed to mark the location of Fort Norumbega, a legendary Norse fort and city. So they've known about this for a while, and it's also interesting that if you look on Google, there's some of these Norumbega inns or houses that look just like out of place. They look very European. I don't know. I think it's a part of the puzzle. Now, if you want more proof for, you know, this idea that Tartaria was in America first, there's many old maps that not only reference Tartaria, Tartar, you can see Norumbega right here. Nova Francia, Arbrodos, a bunch of cities that I don't remember learning in the history class. There's another reference to Tartar, and there's many of these maps that kind of show this old world before the Europeans, or whoever you want to call them, came in and created the new world. And I'm sure many of you guys who have already been looking into Tartaria may know about this, but there's many changes that have happened to cartographic maps over the centuries. You have kind of like different phases. You have like the 1500s, which were, you know, you can kind of still see Hyperborea in these maps, and in some of them California is an island. And then you start to kind of progress, and it slowly changes over time, where some of these old cities are taken out, California's not an island anymore. And so this is just another big piece to the puzzle in terms of, you know, them suppressing our history. So look at this. This is really interesting. This is about Norumbega. He saw kings decorated with rubies 6 inches long, and they were born of chairs of silver and crystal, adorned with precious stones. He saw pears as common as pebbles, and the natives were laden down by their ornaments of gold and silver. The city of Bega was 3/4 of a mile long and had many streets wider than those of London. Some houses had massive pillars of crystal and silver. So I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts, you know? I'm kind of proposing the Constitution thing because it just makes sense. You know, if they were here and they built most of these buildings, who's not to suppose that they also formed this type of republic where people could, through the Constitution, control the government and keep them in check. Not only that, but to protect certain God-given rights. So what do you guys think about this Norumbega stuff? I mean, you can see the castles right here. Here's another depiction of, you know, an old New England map. But the question is, why has this been forgotten? Why is it just a legend? Is it possible that not only, you know, New England, but Washington, D.C., Philly, New York City, all these cities were a part of a Tartarian empire, and that we've slowly forgotten about them, they've been erased from history, and this knowledge has been suppressed. There's even more cities to cover, so let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if I missed out on anything, or if I should check out any more research, and all I can hope is that our minds may be unveiled.
Let go of everything you think to be true. Relax the mind and ask the question, do I truly understand what this reality is?